Hello, everybody, and welcome in. My name is Craig Crash Collins, and welcome back to our coverage of the IHSAA State Football Tournament. We started a little bit earlier on in the week with the All 3C Media team for the regular season, and now as tomorrow's it. Tomorrow the second season begins. The sectional run to the state finals begins tomorrow. Sectional tournament opens up on Friday. It's going to be, look, I've said it several times, both on 3C Media, the Twitter account, as well as, I don't know why I phrased it like that. I've said it a few times on Twitter that I think this, and in some podcasts as well, that this is going to be a very good, very hotly contested state tournament. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to get into it. And so what we're doing today in today's video is very similar to what we did for the Hoosier High School Hudl back in the basketball season, which there's 48 sectional brackets, and guess what? We're going to break down every single one of them. Today is our 48 sectional previews in 48 minutes. Now we're going to preview 48 sectionals in 48 minutes. So go ahead, put that stopwatch, in the ready position as we're going to go ahead and break it down starting in 1A. So let's go ahead and not waste any more time. It's time to talk some sectional football. It's going to be a heck of a tournament. So let's go ahead and dive right in. 48 sectional previews in 48 minutes. So we're going to start in 1A, sectional 48. I think that goes to Tecumseh. In 1A, they're a top 10 offense with 41 points per game, a top 10 defense allowing 16 points per game. They're a top 10 margin of victory with beating teams by 24 points this season, and a top 10 overall team in the class. So Tecumseh's gonna get it done. Sectional 47. A lot of moving parts here. Number 1, Lutheran versus number 7, South Putnam on Friday. Lutheran, the defending 1A state champs, are the best offense, averaging 50 points per game. That's second in the state. South Putnam is second in the class with 47 points per game. The Eagles are sixth in the state in that category. Lutheran's defensive margin is third in 1A, 37 points. South Putnam's is seventh at 28 points. Riverton Park is 7-2 with Darren Hazard, who's ninth in 1A in total yards, 1,655 yards, 22 touchdowns. Covenant Christian, who's always a tough out, is 6-3. That's going to be a very tightly contested sectional. But you know what? When you break it down, Jackson Willis has been good at quarterback this season. Lutheran's a runaway favorite to make it to Lucas Oil when you look at the breakdown on John Harrell's website. So go ahead, give me the Lutheran Saints to win sectional 47. Sectional 46, another sectional where we get an insane matchup right out of the gate. You have 9-0, number 4, North Decatur versus 8-1, number 8, Rye. North Decatur is fourth in 1A in points per game, averaging 46 points in each contest. Rye is fifth, just fractionally worse, but still with 46 points per game. They're the top two teams defensively in terms of points allowed per game. North Decatur is number 1, allowing 5 points. Fry is number 2, allowing 8 points. Both have dynamic rushers. North Decatur has Reed Messer, who's over 1,100 yards for the season. Fry has Parker Burke, who's nearing 1,500 yards at 1,408. I'm going to go with North Decatur here. The D is just a smidge better. Oh, and the quarterback Carson Palmer is 8th in 1A in passing yards, 19 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. So I give North Decatur the slight advantage in the game. Sectional 45, give me Sheridan. I really want to go with the story, which is Jaden DeFalco and Indiana School for the Deaf. That squad has been very solid this year, but the defense for the Blackhawks is just too good. They're 7th in 1A, 24th in the state, 4 shutouts on the season. In sectional 44, the big matchup to watch will likely be South Adams versus Adams Central if both make it through Friday. South Adams was my preseason pick to win the 1A title, but Adams Central has just been dominant Defense is 5th in 1A, allowing 11 points per game. They have a top 20 defense in the state. Their offense is averaging 47 points per game. So that team is just absolutely on a roll right now. So give me number 2, Adams Central. In Sectional 43, Carroll Flora. That's the team I'm going with. They're a top 5 team in 1A. They're 9th offensively, averaging 41 points per game. They're 4th defensively, allowing just 10 points per game, and they've got the 6th best margin of victory in the class. Carroll Flora will move on. In Sectional 42, you have Traders Point and Park Tudor. Those are the favorites to meet in the sectional title game. I have ties to both schools. I broadcasted Traders Point for a couple of years. I broadcasted Park Tudor for a year. Both schools are near and dear to my heart. In the regular season, Park Tudor got the advantage 47-42 over the Knights of Traders Point. But Cooper Simmons-Little is a top 2 quarterback in the state in terms of passing yards. So I'm going to go with Traders Point here. That's a school that has been to the sectional title game more often than not the last few years, and I think they finally get it done. Give me the Knights of Traders Point. And then finally in Sectional 41, I've got North Judson. They're the number 3 team in 1A. They've got a top 5 defense, allowing 10 points per game. They also are 10th in points per game and margin of victory, or top 10 in points per game and margin of victory. They're a top 10 team in the state when it comes to having a great deficit by the end of the game, having that big margin of victory. So give me North Judson. So in 1A, the teams I have moving on are Tecumseh, I've got Lutheran, I've got North Decatur, Sheridan, Adams Central, Carroll Flora, Traders Point, and North Judson. Those are the schools I believe will be moving on to the regional round. In 2A, Sectional 40, give me Evansville Mater Dei. It's really hard to argue against the 2A runner-ups from 2021. Mason Wunderlich has had a really good season again, 7th in 2A in passing. The defense allows 12.5 points per game. That's good enough for 32nd in the state, 4th in 2A. They are 6-3, so that's a little bit of an alarm bell that you might raise up. But they're but their losses are to 3A Vincennes Lincoln by 3, and losses to Evansville Memorial and Wrights, both 4A schools. They played above their class. They've got bit a little bit, but they've played tough in those games. Give me Mater Dei. In Sectional 39, it looks like Triton Central and Cecina are on a collision course. That'll be a heck of a sectional title game if it happens. Triton is 8th in points per game in 2A. Cecina is 3rd in defensive average, so you've got the classic, unstoppable force and movable object analogy there. The Tigers did lose to Cecina on the road in September by just 1 point. Quarterback Jay Stuckey for Triton is 2nd in 2A in passing. In that game against Cecina earlier in September, he went 11 for 15 for 159 yards. Give me the Tigers of Triton Central in a revenge game. Usually when teams are this evenly matched, I'm usually inclined to go with the team that lost the regular season matchup. Plus, I like the Tigers quarterback situation just a little bit better. So give me Triton Central. Sectional 38 is confusing. You've got Heritage Christian, who's the favorite. They're a top 10 team in the class at 5-3. Northeastern is the best record-wise at 8-1 with a top 15 offense in the state and a defense that is top 50. Not to mention quarterback Carson Terrell is top 3 in the class in passing. Lapel has a top 5 rusher in Tyler Dollar. So you could go any different number of ways here. But go ahead and give me the Northeastern Knights. I think they're the team that moves on. It's not just because of the record. They just have, I think, the most complete team of anybody in Sectional 38. So that's who I think will move on. Sectional 37, easy. Give me Linton here. There's some cases to be made for Southmont Cascade. Wouldn't be surprised if North Putnam made a run just because of the talent they have on that roster statistically. But the Miners are 9-0, number 1 in 2A. They've got the top offense in 2A, the 3rd in the state. They're 7th in defense in the class, top 50 in Indiana. Linton is just too good. Give me the Miners. In Sectional 38, this one's a toss-up. The favorite is Eastbrook, although they got beat pretty convincingly by Alexandria, who they'll likely have to go through to make the championship game. But I'm actually going away from those two teams. I'm going off the reservation a bit. Give me Eastern Greentown. They've got a top 10 offense in 2A, scoring 37 points per game. Sectional 35, I have Eastside here. In 2A, they're 7th offensively, 6th defensively. In Indiana, they're top 50 offensively, 40th defensively. Only threat in this sectional is Churubusco, who they housed earlier this year, so I'm going with Eastside. The Blazers, I believe, is that team over there. Sectional 34, another tough one. Lewis Cass has a top 10 defense in 2A. They'll play Lafayette Central Catholic in the semifinal, most likely, who's the best offensive team in the bracket. Rochester and Seeger will play round 1. They're very close statistically, and as much pain as LCC has caused me, both as a fan and as a broadcaster, I'm going to have to go with the Knights of Lafayette Central Catholic. I think they're the most complete team in that bracket, and I think they get it done. Sectional 33, number 2 in 2A, Andrean will face number 3 in undefeated LaVille in the semifinals, and ultimately the winner of that game will win the sectional championship. You know, I really don't want to move off of Drake Bowen and that outstanding roster of Andrean, but LaVille is a top 5 offense in the class and is the best defense in 2A. Andrean is a top 10 defense as well, so when both teams have great defenses, I go with the better offense, and that's LaVille. So that's who I'm picking. Give me LaVille. I don't want to have to move off of my state championship pick, but I'm going to have to give me LaVille. And then sectional 32. Oh, sorry, that was 2A. So we're completed with 2A. So just a quick recap of our 2A teams I think will make it through. Give me Evansville Mater Dei. Give me Triton Central. The Northeastern Knights, Eastern Greentown, Eastside, LCC, and LaVille. Moving on to 3A, sectional 32. I've got Southridge. They're 8-1. They're a ranked team in 3A. Top 5 in the class defensively, top 10 in the state. Charlestown, who's in their bracket, does have a top 10 offense in 3A, and their defense is solid as well, but I have the Raiders. Just a strong hunch here. Sectional 31 may be the easiest bracket to go with. Why? It's 100% Lawrenceburg. Can't win if you can't score. Pretty simple. As simple as you can make it. And the Tigers have gone 24 consecutive quarters, 6 games, without allowing a single point. So give me Lawrenceburg there. Sectional 30, really surprised with Gibson Southern's title defense. Going into the year, I thought losing Brady Allen was just going to be too much for that team, and I thought they would take a step back. But here they are, 9-0, number 2 in the class, and favorites to win the sectional. They'll likely face Owen Valley in the semis. The Patriots are number 7, the best offense in the state, and a top 10 team in terms of margin of victory. Quarterback Brody Lester is 8th in the class in passing. Running back Christian McDonald is 15th in rushing. Gibson is a top 50 team offensively and defensively, but I'm going to go with Owen Valley here. Gibson Southern, you've had a fantastic title defense, but give me the Patriots to win sectional 30. Sectional 29, this sectional is going to be an absolute bloodbath. Why? Because you've got Weibo, who's a top 10 offense and defense in the class. Running back Trevor Weekly is over 1,200 yards and 4th in rushing in 3A. Y'all know how much I like what Ty Owens has done at Tri-West. He's a top 10 passer in 3A. Speedway could also be a sleeper team. Quarterback Carter Watson is 13th in passing. Weibo and Tri-West are likely to play in the semifinal, and it's a rematch of a game that Tri-West won 41-34 at home. That was Weibo's only loss on the season. It was also a game that catapulted Ty Owens into Player of the Week nominations for 3C Media. I think that was week 4. This will contradict what I said earlier, going with the team that lost the regular season matchup, but the 41 points the Bruins put on Weibo is the most points the Vaunted Stars defense allowed all season, and pretty much doubled that. The Stars on the season have given up 22 points a game. Tri-West put up 41. Give me Ty Owens and Tri-West. In sectional 28, remember how good I said Lawrenceburg's defense was statistically this year? Well, Oak Hills is better statistically. They're 4th in the class, 2nd in the state defensively. Offensively, they average 46 points per game, good enough for 3rd in the class and 10th in the state. They're winning games by an average of 41 points. The problem, they're in the same sectional as Chittard, who's number 5 and played above their class all season, facing the likes of Brebeuf, Roncalli, and Cathedral, some of the best teams the state of Indiana has to offer. However, I am going with Oak Hill. for the reasons I mentioned earlier, and the fact that Chatard is 5-4 with that tough schedule. One of their narrow wins coming by one against Garin Catholic, the only other 3A school on their schedule. So in other words, for all their games against the state's best teams, it's not like they ran away against the only in-class opponent they played. So it's not as if, they played above their class all year and then absolutely shellacked the only 3A team they played. They still narrowly escaped there. So I think that's what gives me hope. Because, on paper, Oak Hill is the team here, but I know a lot of folks will pick Chatard. But the fact that that game against Garin was so close, I think that gives me hope for Oak Hill. Sectional 27, it's Norwell. They're 6th in the class offensively, 3rd defensively. They're a top 20 team in the state offensively, 4th defensively, and a top 5 team in the class in both polls. So give me Norwell in Sectional 27. Sectional 26, I have a feeling about Jimtown. They're 7-2, a top 10 defense in the class. Knox is 6-3, listed as the favorite with the 8th ranked offense in the class. But I'm going to go with a better defense here and an offense that can hang with Knox. Go Jimmies. Sectional 25, the final sectional of 3A. West Lafayette is the number 1 team in 3A. They're 9-0. My preseason title pick. My liking of Calumet's weapons are well documented. Hanover Central's numbers are absolutely insane. The second best offense in 3A, 4th in the state, 49 points per game. Best defense in the state, allowing 4 points per game. Best margin of victory in the state, 45 points per game. But I've already abandoned my 1A state championship pick, my 2A state championship pick, and I'm not ready to move off of my preseason 3A. So I've already moved off the South Adams Stars. Starfire Stars. I'm saying that wrong. I'm sorry. I moved off my 2A pick, the Fighting 59ers of Andrean. I can't quit Red Devils of West Lafayette. Max Molis is a top 10 quarterback in the class. West Lafayette's defense has stepped up over the final 4 weeks of the season, allowing 4.5 points per game, including shutout. They've got a better quarterback with a comparable offense and defense. Give me the West Lafayette Red Devils. So, again, to recap, I've got Southridge, Lawrenceburg, Owen Valley, Tri-West, Oak Hill, Norwell, Jimtown, and West Lafayette moving on in 3A. Moving on to 4A in the final class that will get started this weekend. Sectional 24, give me Evansville Rights. They're 9-0, top 5 team in the class. 9th in the class in offensive average. Running back Jonas Burnett is 10th in 4A in rushing, over 1,200 yards. They're a top 30 team in the state in terms of points allowed. 8th in the class. Defensive tackle Levi Oxley, your Week 9 Defensive Player of the Week, is an absolute beast, an absolute stud. Give me Evansville Rights. Sectional 23, that's going to be East Central. Their 4th team in 4A, 7-2 on the season. Their only losses were to a school in Ohio and a close one to Roncalli in the final week of the season. They've blown everybody else out on their schedule. For one, I give you a pass. If you play an Ohio school, I know things are a lot different in Ohio, and so I give you a pass there. And then, of course, the close loss to Roncalli is pretty impressive as well. Their offense is 6th in the class. Running back Josh Ringer is a stud. He's over 1,400 yards and 21 touchdowns, also a 3C Media Player of the Week. The Trojans allow 11 points per game, which is 6th in the class as well. Martinsville is another team that if they were in any other bracket, I would consider picking them. Tyler Atkins, the quarterback, is pretty solid, but give me the Trojans Central. Sectional 22, give me New Pal. They're 9-0 on the season, number 1 team in 4A, number 1 offense in 4A, number 2 defense in 4A. Also, they're 4-0 within the sectional, and the games haven't been close. They have been blowing everyone out in their sectional all season, so I don't think that changes. Shout out to Dragons quarterback Daniel Tippett, who follows the channel. You're awesome. He's 4th in passing in the class. Sectional 21, Ron Colley. Team I've got moving on. They're the number 2 team in 4A, 8-1 on the season. Luke Hansen narrowly missed out on the rushing title for the state, but he did get it for 4A. He's over 2,200 yards with 25 touchdowns. They also boast a top 10 defense in the class. Number 8, Mooresville is here too. They're another team that was my preseason pick. Nick Patterson is 5th in 4A in passing with over 1,750 yards and 21 touchdowns. He's also a huge weapon with his legs as well, so that could make things tough on Roncalli. It's close. Like I said, Mooresville was my preseason pick, but I'm going with the Royals of Roncalli. Roncalli has really impressed me with what they've been able to do this season, and I think that they move on. Sectional 20, I've got number 7, Kokomo. They're far and away the best team in the sectional. A top 25 team in the state offensively, top 20 in the state defensively. They're also second offensively in the class, 4th defensively in the class. I mean, this team is just far and away the best team in that sectional. Give me Kokomo. Sectional 19, number 9, Columbia City. That's where I'm going. Like New Pal, a lot of their wins within the sectional were pretty well handled. They do have a lot of wins against teams that are within their kind of talent range there, and they've been able to handle those opponents relatively easily. They're 8-1 on the season, a big win over Norwell last Friday. They've also got a top 10 team offensively in the class, top 5 defensively is where they're at. Their defense is top 25 in Indiana. Give me Columbia City. Moving on to Sectional 18, I'm going with Northwood here. They're 9-0. Number 3 in 4A. They're 4th in 4A with an offense that's been averaging 39 points per game. They allow just 8 points per game on defense. That's 1st in the class. They're a top 10 team in defensively in Indiana. They've got a 31-point margin of victory, which is 16th in the state. They've just been so impressive all year. And finally, to round out 4A, sectional 17. This one is the most up in the air for me. You've got New Prairie, who's number 6 in the class, 8-1, boasting the 3rd best defense. You've got Gary West, who's 7-2, averaging 40 points per game, which is 3rd in 4A. I really like what Hobart running back Trey Gibson has done with over 1,000 yards, 13 touchdowns, 12th in the class, another 3C Media Player of the Week. I feel like I've gone chalk pretty much everywhere else, so give me the Brickies. Hobart wins sectional 17. So to recap, going back here, in 4A, the teams I have moving on: Evansville Rights, East Central, New Pal, Roncalli, Kokomo, Columbia City, Northwood, and Hobart. In 5A, sectional 16. These teams will get going here in a couple of weeks, so on the 28th of October. In sectional 16, 3 of the 4 teams are around 500. Castle and Evansville North are the 2 best teams in sectional 16. They did meet on opening night. Castle won 28-21, so I'll fade that result. I'll take the Huskies of Evansville North. In sectional 15, give me Bloomington South. They're 7-1, number 3 in the class. The number 1 offense in the class, 2nd defensively, a top 35 teams in those categories in Indiana. Bloomington South has just had an incredible year, and that's who I've got moving on. Sectional 14, I've got Whiteland. This is a sectional where I picked Whiteland out of the gate, and then the more I dug, the more I wasn't so sure. I am going to stick with Whiteland. They're the number 2 team in the class. They're 8-1 on the season. They allow 34 points per game. They score 34 points per game, which is 5th in 5A. They allow 16 points per game, which is 8th in the class. But what makes me a little nervous is Terre Haute South does have Brady Wilson and Bryson Carpenter, both 1,100-plus yard rushers. So, I mean, that could be really tough. It's one of those things where what type of rushing attack do they have? Is it a rushing attack that is pretty simple to read? So, like, because obviously they've got the numbers. Because a lot of times when you see teams that are really good at rushing the football, they can sometimes become very predictable. And if you're a team that can shut that down really well, then it just it's kind of a helpless situation for the team that just runs the football. So the effectiveness of what they'll be able to do is kind of what makes me wonder one way or the other. But I do think Whiteland, who's got a defense capable enough to shut those guys down, I think that's why I'm going with Whiteland there. Sectional 13, I'm going with the number 5 Harrison Raiders there. The best team in the sectional, hands down, not to mention they're a top 5 team in the class on both sides of the ball, top 30 in the state defensively. Give me Harrison. In sectional 12, this is a toss-up. You've got Fort Wayne Snyder, who is number 1 in 5A. They're 8-1 on the season. They average 39 points per game, which is second in 5A. They average 9 points allowed per game, first in the class. They're 12th in Indiana defensively. They've got a top 40 offense. But then you look at Fort Wayne North, who lost by 2 to Snyder opening night and hung with a good Carroll 6A team. They have a great quarterback in 5A. One of the top quarterback in 5A. In terms of passing yards in Bodie Dickerson, 1,848 yards, 25 touchdowns, and a top rusher in Jonte Lambert, 1,800 yards, 13 touchdowns. I really wanted to pick Snyder here, but give me Fort Wayne North. I'm going with the Legends here. I mean, also when your team moniker is the Legends, I mean, how can you not go with that? So I'm going Fort Wayne North here. In sectional 11. I'm going Mishawaka. They're 8-1, 5th in 5A on offense, averaging 34 points per game. They allow 14 points per game on defense, 4th in 5A. Oh, and they're the only sectional 11 team above 500. There's as we get to the waning parts of the state, there's a lot of sectionals where there's only one team that's above 500, so it's kind of hard not to go with them. In sectional 10, I'm going with number 9, Valpo. Again, only team in sectional 500, only team in the sectional above 500, not to mention Valpo has the 9th best defense in 5A, so give me Valpo. And then finally, in sectional 9, the Maryville Pirates were my 5A preseason pick to win it all, so I'm going with them. They're 7-2, number 6 in 5A. Quarterback Jalen Thomas is thrown for over 1,600 yards with 11 touchdowns. He's 4th passing yards in the class. They also have Justin Marshall at running back, who's 3rd in 5A and rushing over 1,000 yards and 50 touchdowns. Hammond Central is also 7-2, but I'm staying with my preseason pick. Give me. So to recap 5A here, I've got Evansville North, Bloomington South, Whiteland, Harrison, Fort Wayne North, Mishawaka, Valparaiso, and Maryville. Now for the class everybody's excited for, everybody wants to hear from, now to the class that everybody's excited to hear from, sectional. I keep saying that. We're going to tee this up again. We're going to do up downs until Craig is no longer tired and thirsty. Anyway, now the class that everyone wants to hear about. Class 6A. Starting in Sectional 8, I'm going with Center Grove here. They're back-to-back defending 6A champions, number 4 at the state's highest level, 7-2 on the season. Tyler Cherry is 7th in 6A in passing, over 1,650 yards, 17 touchdowns. Micah Coyle has been a huge weapon for the Trojans this season, 1,150 yards, 11 touchdowns. Saying all this also to say that they're the only team in Sectional 8 with a winning record. So when you're the 2-time defending champions and you're the only team in the sectional above 500, give me the Trojans all day. In Sectional 7, talked about a few sectionals already with a lot of the teams under 500. Sectional 7 is completely in the red, all under 500. Warren Central has played 7 games against 6A opponents, the only team in the sectional who's played more than 2 games against 6A opponents. So they're 3-4 in those 7 games. So I'll go with the Warriors of Warren Central. In Sectional 6, Cathedral is really good. Cathedral was my preseason pick to win 6A. They're 7-1 on the season, number 2 in 6A, coming off of an incredible win over Center Grove on the final Friday of the regular season. Danny O'Neill has killed it this season. He's 5th. He's the 5th best in passing in 6A, 1,900 yards, 25 touchdowns, just 3 interceptions. He leads the 3rd best offense in the state. He leads the 3rd best offense at the state's highest level. The Cathedral is also the 6th best defense in 6A, and again, only school in the sectional with a winning record. So, all these teams are going to have relatively easy paths, you would think at least. There could be some upsets. I know I haven't really been picking a ton of upsets, and it's definitely possible. This is what the tournament's all about. But Cathedral certainly looks to have an easy path to the regional. Sectional 5 is extremely tough because you've got number 3 Brownsburg, who plays number 8 Ben Davis in the first game. Brownsburg won the regular season meeting at Ben Davis on opening night. They are two great offenses. Brownsburg is 4th in 6A, 30th in the state, averaging 40 points per game. Ben Davis is 10th in the class, averaging 33 points per game. The big question is the status of quarterback Jaden Whitaker, who got hurt in Brownsburg's loss to Hamilton Southeastern. He was 4th in passing with 1,984 yards and 50 touchdowns. Whitaker is the impact player here in that matchup, and if he goes, I think Brownsburg wins, and as of right now, I haven't really seen any indications that he will not play, so because of that, I'm going to go with Brownsburg. Give me the Bulldogs. Sectional 4 is another sectional where the title will likely be won in the opening round. You've got number 7 Carmel, who's 6-3, taking on number 9 Westfield, who's also 6-3. The Greyhounds have the best defense in 6A. The Greyhounds have the 8th best defense in 6A. Both offenses average around 28 points per game. So since the offenses are so similar, I'll take the better defense. So give me Carmel. Sectional 3. This sectional has the number 1 team in the state, the undefeated Hamilton Southeastern Royals. They and 6A number 11 Fishers are on a collision course for the sectional title game. Those two played earlier this season. HSE playing in an incredible. They, of course, won that game. It was an incredible 28-27 overtime thriller that the Royals won. Hamilton Southeastern has the 9th best offense in 6A. Running back Jalen Alexander has 851 yards and 8 touchdowns on the season. The Royals are the 7th best defensively, allowing 17 points per game. As much as I think Fishers could win it, Fishers absolutely could win this sectional. I would not be surprised. It was so close. Now knowing how good Hamilton Southeastern is, it should really scare you if you're playing Fishers. I mean, I guess, it'll scare Hamilton Southeastern because those are the two teams that are likely going to play for sectional title game. But Fishers is right there with Hamilton Southeastern. They're a sneaky team should they get past the Royals. But as much as I think that could happen, I don't think it will. Hamilton Southeastern has everything going their way this season. Give me the Royals. Sectional 2 is going to be absolutely nuts. You've got number 5 Carroll, who's 9-0, boasting the 2nd-ranked offense and top-rated defense at the state's highest level. Quarterback Jimmy Sullivan is a top 10 6A QB with 1,600 yards and 23 touchdowns. You've got 7-2 Penn, who is number 10 with the 3rd best defense in the class. You've got number 13 Warsaw at 7-2 with the 8th best defense and got number 13 Warsaw, who's 7-2 with the 6th best offense and 5th best defense in 6A. Elkhart is also 7-2 with the 2nd best defense in 6A. So yes, you heard it. All sectional 2 teams, all 4 sectional 2 teams are in the top 5 in the class defensively. That's absolutely insane. Plus, you've got 2 in the top 10 in 6A offensively. So I'll take the best defense here. Give me Carroll to win sectional 2. And finally, to round out this sectional preview show, sectional 1. I'm going with Crown Point here. They're 9-0, number 6 in 6A. They're on a roll this season. 40 points per game, 5th in the class, 31st in the state, 14 points allowed per game, which is 4th in 6A, 40th in the state. There is a case to be made for Lafayette Jeff, but like Hamilton Southeastern, Crown Point has been getting all the bounces this season, so give me the Bulldogs. So finally for 6A here, my winners are Center Grove, Warren Central, Cathedral, Brownsburg, Carmel, Hamilton Southeastern, Carroll, and Crown Point. Those are the teams I believe will move on. And that does it. We were well under 48 minutes. The timer I'm looking at right now is at 34 minutes, so we beat our... Let's just now riff for 14 minutes about everything. No, I'm just joking. But thank you guys all for tuning in to the sectional preview show. I really enjoyed doing this for you guys, breaking down all these teams, all these matchups. It's going to be a wild postseason. I hope you guys enjoy it. Remember, you can follow us at 3C Media Sports on Twitter. Go like us on Facebook, 3C Media. Go check out the TikTok and the YouTube channel where we're going to be doing a whole lot of coverage on the 2022 IHSAA football state tournament. It's going to be nuts. We're going to be live on TikTok at 3C Media at 3C Media on Friday, recapping the first round of games. If you missed that, it'll go up on YouTube. So a lot of coverage. You won't want to miss it. We'll go live probably about 9 o'clock on Friday. So mark your calendars there, and then go subscribe on YouTube. We're finally over 100 subscribers, so thank you guys all for your support there. And remember, you can listen to the Crash Course podcast every week on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. Wherever podcasts can be heard, you can hear the Crash Course podcast. So again, a lot of great coverage on the way for the IHSAA state tournament. It's going to be a lot of fun, but until then, have a good one, everybody.